guys, welcome to the show. Mr. Mark Cloer is here. How you doing, mate?
I'm good. Right. How are you?
Yeah, good. We're for another top 10, mate. Maybe one that people know about this band for sure, but maybe one of the lesser known bands especially of the 80s. Still going now. Lizzy Borden. Yeah, Lizzy Borden. I mean, we do talk about Lizzy Borden, me and you, quite a bit, don't we? And it's nice to do an actual show, a top 10. So before I'm going to ask you, how you got on with your list and that, mate, because we don't know each other's lists, so it's a secret from each other as well. Lizzy Borden is an American metal band formed in '83 in California, originally California. I think it might have changed a bit now. Not much in the way of releases because they've taken big gaps in their discography, but only 7 studio albums in total. And they basically, active years were 83 to 96, 99 to 2004, then a couple of years off from, again, 2006 to now. And even now in these, where bands are very active, in the later years, you don't get much material out of Lizzy. But very sparse, considering 83. Now, in general, like Lizzy Borden, well, the name comes from the Lizzy that killed her parents, wasn't it? Just woke up one day and decided to axe murder her parents. Great name for a band. Great image as well. I'm sure you'll probably get onto some of that, mate. I'll leave that for you. But very musically for me, really hones in. When I think about American metal, mid-80s American metal, which I love, Lizzy Borden's one of those bands I always think of. To the typical mid-80s American metal, just superb at it. Love them, absolutely love them. And on my list, I did go for certain years because that really honed in on me. In particular, I'll get onto how I found my list in a minute. But mate, you have a little. How did you find Lizzy, and how did you get on with your list as well?
I found them on I've mentioned this several times on your channel in the past, but we used to have a college radio station here. Well, they still have the station, but University of South Carolina has their own radio station, and back from the probably mid 80s up until mid 90s or so, maybe a little later than that. Tuesday night, they had a metal show, ran from, I think it was 9 o'clock to midnight every Tuesday night. And that was my ritual. When I was in high school, I'd finish my homework or whatever I had going, have dinner, take a shower, and I would just literally sit with headphones from 9 o'clock to midnight and listen to that metal show. And I discovered so many bands that I would have never heard of if it hadn't been for that. Because they played everything from Bon Jovi to Cannibal Corpse and everything in between. Anything that was, considered hard rock or heavy metal, they would play. They took requests, and it was just a great time. I discovered so many bands that way, and that's how I discovered Lizzy Borden. I think the first song I ever heard was Council for the Cauldron off the first album. They played that, and it just immediately caught my ear. It was just so evil sounding, not death metal kind of stuff, but in the traditional metal genre, but just the lyrics and the imagery that it evoked. And so eventually the first album I bought was the live album, the Murderous Metal Roadshow. And again, I've discovered so many of my favorite bands. The first album I ever bought was a live album. Mm-hmm. And same thing with Lizzy Borden. And that album, to this day, that's probably the one I play the most. And it's really just songs from the first album, because that's all they had out at the time. But it was just so different for the time, and it just caught my ear instantly, and I've just followed them ever since.
Well, I've got to say that, funny you say a lot Lizzy Borden, along with a lot of bands that back then, I think produced a live album that actually sounded better than the original recordings as
Yeah,
well.
yeah,
You know,
definitely.
mix wise, production wise, you know, the same could be said for Judas Priest as well. You know, there was a lot of bands that bring in live albums out at the time. They actually sounded better than
Yeah.
in the studio. I think Lizzy Borden was no exception. Well, what about the list itself? How did you find it?
It would have been real easy for me just to pick 10 songs off of Visualize.
Yeah,
Uh, and I think you're probably the same way,
yeah.
but I decided to branch out a little bit. I didn't intentionally pick a song from every album, but as it turns out, every album gets at least one pick from me. So,
Good,
um,
good.
just trying to branch out a little and talk about some stuff that maybe doesn't get talked about too often. But my true love of the band revolves around the first three albums,
Mm.
and after that, it was hit and miss on every album after that. Some of the stuff on the album I liked, some of it I didn't. And,
Mm.
anyway, there was enough for me to get 10 songs. So I actually, I had some honorables too. So I had plenty to pick from. But rather than just pick everything from, the first few albums, I decided to, you know, branch out and at least touch on each of the albums.
Well, our love of Visualize is, yeah, we know what that is. To me, that's the best album of 1987 for
Yeah.
me.
It's definitely up there on my list too.
And that's where I actually found the band, mate. To let you know, I went back, and then I went forward a little bit for a few years. But I'm a bit like you. The late material, a lot of it, as we know, I think it's that age as well that you find the band. You know,
Yeah.
it's just like one of those things. Visualize was such a massive album for me, back to front, front to back. Sorry, and I could have really gone to town on that album.
Yeah.
But I didn't. I've gone a little bit away from the album because there's some great material to be found elsewhere, obviously.
Right.
And before we go on to the list, obviously the whole, not just the music. I mean, man, the stage show, they've got to be seen to be believed. I mean, I call they're like shock horror type music, but the music ain't really like that. There's a lot of horror themes, but the music is so expertly, performed and produced and written. It's not a band that's going for the effect of what we look like rather than the music. It's definitely not that. But they've definitely got cool visuals of them. I mean, I caught a live show on YouTube a few years ago, and man, still put on the whole lot. I mean, there was a bit where Lizzy had like three faces.
Yeah,
He had a face at the
that's a
back.
creepy mask or whatever it
Proper.
is. He stuck with that throughout the whole career. Really, he kind of reinvents himself as different characters. As time goes on, it's a different show than what he was doing in 1985, but it's still very graphic. I mean, I always thought he was kind of, his shows were a little bit of Kiss, a little bit of Wasp, a lot of Alice Cooper.
Mm.
I actually bought they had a video of the Murderous Metal Roadshow, the live album, which you can watch the whole thing on YouTube now, but I used to have it on VHS, and the whole show was just, blood and guts and gore. And looking back now, it was so cheesy because, there's one scene where he kills a girl in a box, and then he comes out with like a mannequin head. he starts he starts singing the song "I Love You to Pieces" to the mannequin head, and it's so cheesy now, but back when we were teenagers, it was like, man, that's really cool. But
and
he
talks
evolved
about
throughout time, but it's a
yeah.
very graphic show.
I mean, if you think about reinventing himself, I mean, I found him on Visualize, and he was like a futuristic.
Yeah,
like I don't know if
alien or something.
Alien, yeah, definitely very cool indeed as well. The visuals. But right then, mate, are you ready for your top 10?
Yeah,
10 to 1. Go. What you got, mate?
Okay.
Number 10.
All right, I'm gonna start with the most recent album. Came out in 2018, called My Midnight Things. I got to admit, when this first came out, and I first listened to it, I said, this is not the classic Lizzy Borden sound that I know and love. This is kind of it's an alternative rock kind of vibe, kind of a goth rock. It's kind of a fusion. To me, it sounded like a fusion of 70s glitter rock with some 90s alternative. But the one song that really stands out to me is called "Long May They Haunt Us." And again, it's got that death vibe, ghostly, subject matter. It's got a cool video that goes along with it, but it's not, the super heavy stuff, but it's just got a real cool vibe. And I don't love every song on this album, but there are a couple that I do enjoy listening to, and that's probably the one I like the most on it. But "Long May They Haunt Us."
Very cool, very cool. Well, my list is, like I said, very. I could have really gone visualised a lot, but I've gone outside of the box there. It's funny, I mentioned your T-shirt, which I fucking love, by the way, Mark, your Lizzy Borden T-shirt. And the really funny thing is, like I've said about my weird fascination with wearing my T-shirts in alphabetical order. So, because I've got about 130, 140 T-shirts, band T-shirts. So yesterday I was out and about wearing my Man Machine Industry T-shirt. I come home, thought, right, obviously, what's next? Pulled out this T-shirt. I haven't got a Lizzy Borden T-shirt, but this is my number 10, Notorious.
Yeah.
The song Notorious. So that's weird how that works out.
Yeah.
So Notorious is a song off Menace to Society, which came out in 1986. One of the highlights of the album. It's a great album, by the way. I did mention production and mix, and this is a step up, this album, from the debut, but still a bit rough around the edges, you could say. And I don't think, let's not forget, Lizzy Borden's got a brilliant vocal. His voice is brilliant. But the actual production of his vocals didn't do him no favours, I don't think, in the early days. It was almost like a bit tinny, the way it was mixed. And you got to hear him much clearer and how great his vocals are in later albums. But this is a brilliant song. It's almost like really fast verse. There's a lot of Maiden influence, I think, don't you, through some of his songs, especially on the guitar work. And this one, especially guitar work. This has got very cool gang vocals as well. Hail Caesar! It's a fist pumping type song. But very cool. I actually listened to this. I mentioned before this on the way home today to do the video. Realised how brilliant it is. I got into this song so much, and I thought the only thing that probably holds it back is production. It could have easily been higher on the list if it wasn't the way it was produced. But Notorious from Menace to Society is my number 10.
I've got to mention. I don't remember what video it was or what we were talking about at the time, but a couple of years ago, you mentioned that to you, Lizzy Borden sounded like Bruce Dickinson. And when you mentioned that, I had never picked up on that, never really made that connection. And when you said it, I was like, I don't know if I hear that or not. But then wasn't long after that, I was listening to Number of the Beast, the album. And a couple of spots on that album, I picked up what you were talking about, and specifically on Children of the Damned.
Yeah.
There's a section in there where Bruce sounds just like Lizzy Borden, or more properly, I guess Lizzy Borden sounds like Bruce. Bruce came first, obviously, bigger name, but I had never picked up on that before until you mentioned that. And now when I listen to Maiden, I can pick up little spots here and there where he does sound like Lizzy Borden, or Lizzy sounds like Bruce, or however you want to say it. So,
I think there was a few singers around that time who had this like higher range operatic type. Bruce Dickinson would be one of them. Jeff Tate was one of them. The Crimson Glory singer Midnight, and I always thought that Lizzy Borden had that bit of a flavour to him as well. But
he never got the exposure, so he's not as well known. But he can still hit some of those high notes. I've watched some of his recent stuff, and some of them he has to sing in a lower key now because let's face it, we're all getting old. But he definitely has maintained his vocal ability pretty well compared to a lot of singers from that era. Anyway, let's see. My number 9 is from 2007's Appointment with Death, Under Your Skin. This album's pretty heavy. It's death oriented, of course. His character on this album was basically the Reaper, and this song just catchy as hell. It's got a cool keyboard riff that just runs throughout the song. It kind of gives it a throwback feel. It's got a cool guitar solo from his guitarist at this time was Ira Black, which we hadn't mentioned. He's always had great guitarists in the band.
Oh yeah.
Most notable. Well, we'll talk about him a little more when he comes up. But Joe Holmes, but Ira Black, who's been playing with him in recent years, he's kind of one of those journeyman guitarists. He's played with Metal Church. He's played with Heathen. He filled in for John Levin when he couldn't play with Dawkins a couple of times, and just kind of one of those guitarists that pops up in a lot of bands. But he's got a real cool solo in this song.
Very cool, mate. Very cool. And that is a heavy album as well.
Yeah, it's one of the darker albums from start to finish for sure.
Well, I'm going to go to a bit of a. He has got a softer side, Lizzy Borden, by the way, or the band has. So, Visualize came out, and then the next album came out, Master of Disguise, and I love the album, but I've got to say, after Visualize, I think it took a lot to live up to that album.
Yeah.
And I found the next album, Master of Disguise, a bit spotty in places, but still a really great album. Production-wise, it sounded very clean and very clear as well. So he kept that on. But the ballad, Never Too Young, is absolutely superb. It's almost got this the whole album's got this almost theatrical play. It's like a play sort of thing. Yeah. You know, even the front cover. And this had this real grand sort of feel about a bit of an orchestra sort of sounding. And the piano parts in this as well. So really, I mean, you couldn't find a ballad on Visualize. But then hitting more of that sort of side, and very varied as well, the album. But Never Too Young is an absolutely superb ballad. I think it might have been a single, I'm not sure, but it definitely sounds like it, a single if it wasn't. Yeah. So yeah, that's my number 9, mate. Never Too Young.
I thought we might have a match going here, but because my number 8's also from Master of Disguise, and it is the title track. And as you said, when this album came out in 1989, I'll be honest with you, when I first heard this album, I did not like it at all. It was too. I thought it was overproduced. It had orchestras in it. It had horns in it. It had heavy piano pieces. I mean, some of this stuff you would have never heard on Visualize or Love You to Pieces. To go from that really dark stuff to something this, I don't want to say poppy, but he definitely went in a more commercial direction. In fact, this was supposed to be, originally he called it a solo album. Now, when you're dealing with Lizzy Borden, I don't really know what differentiates a solo album from a band album anyway, because Lizzy Borden is Lizzy Borden. If he'd released it under his real name, Greg Hargis, nobody would have known who the hell that was and would have bought it. But there's a video I watched. It was on MTV, and it was, I think, right after he had finished Visualize. He talked about how his next album was going to be a solo album. So this was the next album, and he talked about how he wanted to make it a little more mainstream, and he did have different band members than he had in the previous band. Now his brother, I'm assuming you know this, his brother is the drummer, Joey Scott, who was on every album. So it's essentially their band. But on this album, they had different guitarists, different bass players. So anyway, it's a very, like you said, a very polished album. He said he wanted to focus more on vocal harmonies than he did on guitars. In fact, it's got layered vocals, which he'd never done before. But anyway, the title track is my favorite on the album, and it's just got almost a a stadium rock kind of vibe to it. Like we said, not as heavy as previous Lizzy Borden stuff, but just a really good song for the time. And I give him credit for wanting to branch out and experiment. But at the time, anyway, it was just such a departure from those first three albums that I listened to it, quite a bit when it first came out. Then I shelved it for a lot of years and didn't go back to it until fairly recent times. And now I can listen to it and see the brilliance of it. But at the time, it was just a little bit too overproduced, I thought.
I think that was a sign of the times, mate, when it late 80s. I mean, look at Def Leppard as a brilliant example of overproducing music, the sound of it. But I mean, at the same time, it's weird. It was more commercial at times, but it was very experimental as well, wasn't it? Because you got all these orchestras and all that sort of thing. So it wasn't your typical late 80s. He didn't start like Bon Jovi or anything, did he? He still was in this sort of weird sort of like phase, I suppose. But definitely, you can understand that being a solo album for sure, because it was so different.
Even the video, I watched I don't remember which song it was now. They had a full video of it, and it was just him. I mean, his hair was wild like it always was, but he didn't have any kind of goth makeup. It was just him in his street clothes singing. So it was definitely a departure from the very theatrical, death oriented stuff of those earlier albums.
Great song though. Great album. I love it as well. Thanks, mate. So my number 8, we're getting to visualize now. So I've had to slot some visualize songs in there. Bit of a deeper cut, I would say, but always been one of my favorite songs, and that's Voyeur, I'm Watching You. So, I mean, there's quite a few tracks about stalking back then, wasn't there? So, I mean, you couldn't have got more clearer. There weren't no double meaning here. I mean, lyrically as well, he's fantasizing about suspended fires, and
that's a great line.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, along with the horror, very sexual driven in a lot of the lyrics with Lizzy Borden. It's all about sex as well. Almost both at the same time a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But Voyeur is such a cool song, like a medium pace song. Like I said, I think a bit of a deeper cut. I don't think it was a single or anything like that. I always imagined it was a deeper cut. Like later on the album, around about track 8 maybe, I think. But a very, very cool song. Very catchy as well. I mean, this whole album's very catchy, but still got its heavy side. But Voyeur, I'm Watching You is my number 8.
Yeah, that's one of them you don't have to leave to be interpreted. It's pretty in your face what he's talking about.
It is.
All right, so my number 7. I don't know if you even know this song. It is from the live album, The Murderous Metal Roadshow. They had 2 studio tracks they tacked on the end of it. One of them was called Wake Up, It's Time to Die. And the one I picked is called Dead Serious. Very heavy. I would say probably one of the heaviest Lizzy Borden songs as a whole. It's almost Sabbathy in a way. It's just got a great gallop through the song. Do you know this one at all?
No, I don't, mate. No.
Yeah, like I said, it's a bonus track on the live album, so it's not one that got a lot of play, but I think you'd like it. It's very, like I said, kind of Sabbathy, kind of doomy, definitely dark. Probably the most obscure one on my list, but that's one that I've always liked.
Very cool. What does it sound like, that song? Do you remember? Is it like the sound, like production wise? Because I was that was in between the debut and
it was right after the debut album. It definitely sounds like it could have come off the first album. The song itself and the production. It's kind of that that muddy, grainy production, but that as much as we like highly produced albums, sometimes that sludgy production kind of adds to the charm of the song.
Definitely.
This one, I don't think it would translate as well if it had a slick production. So
I mean, even the songs that are on my list that are not on Visualize or Master of Disguise, you wouldn't want to change them. It's just that at the time it was like, the difference. Very cool. Cheers, mate. Of course, you've got a deeper cut that no one's heard. Okay, my number 7. going to the Master of Disguise album again. This is a very cool song. Some people, it's quite funny as well. Love is a Crime. So we talked about horns. This has got horns in it,
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah,
such a
that's the
cool.
main one that came to mind when I was talking about horns.
It is. And it's weird. You can imagine it without the horns, but obviously, after spending so many years with it, it sort of makes sense. But quite a almost sad beginning. You get this like acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
Then you get obviously, well, right at the beginning, you get a phone call from whoever's. I don't know if it's Lizzy Borden doing the. Probably dialing the phone, probably is. And then you get a woman on the end of the phone. It's obviously a dirty phone call, which used to happen. I don't even know if it's a thing anymore, mate. Do you know what I mean? Probably not even a thing anymore, dialing up dirty phone calls.
Yeah.
But and then you get like a woman on the other end, like obviously heavy breathing and pretending to have sex and that on the other end. And yeah, basically he's obsessed with this woman, I suppose, on the other end of the phone. That's what it's all about. Sex again, obviously, Lizzy Borden writing about sex. But it's a very cool song. Very cool. Loads of groove in it. Very catchy again. Even it's weird, isn't it? The subject matter and the catchiness of it sort of don't make sense because it is so catchy. But it's absolutely brilliant. Love is a Crime. There you go.
Yeah, that's actually the one when you mentioned that. That's the one I was thinking about with the video where he's just in street clothes. And yeah, it's got a very in your face horn section.
Yeah.
Again, when I first listened to this album in 1989, I was like, "What's with the damn horns?" That's I don't expect to hear brass in a Lizzy Borden song. So it didn't grab me back then. But like I said, I can appreciate it now, more than I did then.
Okay.
Funny how your taste changed, but also your ability to appreciate changes and evolves over the years as well.
My biggest change lately, mate, honestly, and I heard this in the 80s. If I heard one of these songs in the 80s with this on, I would have been like, no, and that's saxophone.
Yeah.
I'll be like, no, what the fuck is a saxophone doing on this rock or metal record? Now, I don't know what's happened to me, but when I hear a band now use a saxophone, I'm like, yeah, fucking hell, that sounds fucking weird, isn't it?
Yeah, it kind of grabs your ears. Yeah. Not quite heavy metal, but Urgent from Foreigner with that sax solo. I always like that. So it definitely grabs your attention.
It does.
Right. Let's see. So my number 6, I'm going to visualize, and this one is Outcast.
Nice.
That's one of the whole album is just so damn catchy. Like our buddy Kent Schreiber likes to say, got more hooks than a fisherman's tackle box.
Yeah.
This whole album, every song on this album is catchy. It's just like he blew his full wad on this album as far as hooks. After this album, the hooks were more sporadic. Some of the songs were hooky, some of them not so much. But
lightning in a bottle, mate. They all do it.
Yeah, exactly.
They have lightning in a bottle for an album.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. He captured lightning in a bottle on this album. I can't think of a song on it that's not hooky, that doesn't instantly grab you. Like I said, we both could have just talked about this album, but I didn't think that would be fair. But anyway, I guess at the time, we all kind of felt like outcasts. So maybe that's why it spoke to me at the time. But just so melodic but heavy at the same time. It's just got everything I like in a metal song. It's slower pace, medium pace, like you like to call it, and it's just a very powerful song, and probably my second favorite song on the album.
It's a very cool song, mate. Very cool song. So my number 6 is the same as you.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I've got Outcast as well.
Okay.
Cool. I thought we would have some matches, but I didn't think we would be exactly the same number as well.
Same number, yeah, that's cool.
So yeah, Outcast, absolutely amazing. I love the it's got like the bass in that verse as well. Doom, doom, and then that guitar comes in. It's like you said, heaviness, catchiness. Oh, it's got everything. Sort of almost like a slow to medium pace. This,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
gives it that heaviness even more. But what a song, Outcast. I mean, it almost could be one of them songs you like if you was introducing. I always say like if you're introducing someone to the band, it
yeah.
could be like there's plenty more obviously we're going to talk about, but it could be like one of the best, songs.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
like I said, because it's got everything. It's heavy, but it's melodic. It's just it would appeal to if you consider yourself a fan of hard rock or heavy metal
Yeah,
of any kind. This song would probably appeal to you, regardless
definitely.
of what genre you lean towards. It's got everything. It's just a great
Yes.
song.
Okay, that's my number six, mate. We've got a
And I
match.
was actually I should have mentioned this earlier, but I thought Visual Eyes was probably considered his most successful album, but evidently, Master of Disguise. I don't know if it sold more. I guess it sold more, but it's considered his most successful, commercially successful
Mm.
album. I would have thought Visual Eyes would have been the one because at that for that brief time when it was in the charts, it was it was all over MTV and
It's
he was in
probably
all
the
the magazines and
it's probably the because you don't really get to hear much, like back then you didn't get to hear much of the album, did you, before it came out?
right,
So like now, can't you? You can, before you buy anything now, you can test the waters with like 4 or 5 songs, can't you?
yeah, yeah,
So I suppose maybe off the back of Visualize and people starting to get excited about Master of Disguise, a lot of people bought it. Maybe, I don't know. But like I said, at the time we were a bit disappointed, both of us. Perhaps that's how a few people felt about it, but you can appreciate it now for sure.
yeah,
Master of
yeah.
Disguise, yeah.
I just thought I thought that was that was on Wikipedia, so take it with a grain of salt. But
Yeah.
supposedly that was the more popular album. But anyway, um, so my number five is going to come off Menace to Society from '86, and this is Bloody Mary. Uh, this is my favorite song on that album. It's got a eerie, distorted effect they put on his vocal. Um, song lyric wise and the way it sounds could have been in a horror movie. Be a good
Mm.
soundtrack, track for a horror movie. It's got a great bass line running through the whole song, and like I said, just his that effect they put on his voice, and then the way he screams out the chorus, "Bloody Mary." I mean, it's just very very dark, very powerful. That's the standout track on that album to me.
It's a very cool song. Um, I am going to that album as well for my number five, but Terror on the Town I'm
Yeah,
going for.
yeah,
Man, this is so cool. The two songs that I've included off this list, I did listen to today on the way home off the Medicine Society. What a cool beginning this has got. It's got like a news a newsreel
yeah,
and someone saying, it sounds like there's someone in a helicopter, like looking down
right,
and
right,
reporting that there's like a riot. And it's giving some detail on the riot. It says that there's like a biker gangs down there and all that. And all of a sudden, you get like the riff come in and the drums, and like that riff, man, it's just
yeah, yeah,
superb. And it's funny with the album cover, which you've got there, and your Minister Society, you got it there, mate.
yeah, yeah,
I always imagine like because you've got this terror on the town, and they're like in the middle of the town. Just I always thought the band was like there, in this riot. It's just
yeah,
absolutely superb. But what a great song! And it's got this like weird, like frenetic riff going on in the chorus. But it's again very catchy. Love that song. That's my favorite song off of Medicine Society.
yeah. That album cover always kind of hit me as like a Road Warriors kind of
Yeah,
vibe, post apocalyptic,
yeah,
which was kind of pretty popular back then.
it
Kiss
was.
used that theme in the
They did.
All Hell's Breaking Loose video, and you saw that and a lot of videos and whatnot back in the day. It was a pretty popular theme to carry on, but yeah.
Very cool. Okay, mate. Number four.
Number four is gonna come off of 2000's comeback album called Deal with the Devil. And this song is called There Will Be Blood Tonight. And it's the lead off track. Very fast by Lizzy Borden standards. Could almost qualify as speed metal. When I first bought this album, and this is the first track you hear, I was like, "Wow, this is a different side of Lizzy Borden." You know, he was mostly known for that slower to medium pace, you know, doomy, dirgy kind of sound. This one's not. This one's like almost like a Neon Nights kind of song. Just got that fast gallop throughout the whole song. Um, the whole album as a whole, it's one of the weaker albums as a whole on my list, but I love this song. You know, obviously it's number 4 on my list. It's just the most catchy song on the album, I think. It's just pedal to the metal. I mean, this is full blown metal. This isn't any kind of alternative vibe. This is, you know, I wish the whole album had been good as this track, but like I said, unfortunately, the rest of the album wasn't as good to me.
The thing is, people listening to this will understand that Lizzy Borden, you can tell he does what the fuck he likes when it comes to his albums, because he's you know, I love like him to bring something else out and be in the vein of Visualized, you know what I mean? But I don't think that's going to happen because, like, you know, he's strayed from that. It's almost like he tries to reinvent himself musically as well, and so that's a good thing. You could say that's a brilliant thing, but sometimes you just want him to go back to what you loved him for, didn't you? But still great music, though. Still great.
And
music.
You know, we can say that about all our favorite bands. You know, and it's kind of a double-edged sword for them, because if they stay to one style, then they get accused of just being, you know, samey for their whole career. Like, you know, let's be honest, AC/DC, or Accept. You know, some albums are better, obviously, but they stay to the same pattern throughout their career. And, you know, bands either get criticized for that, or if they try to experiment and do something different, then they get criticized for not sounding like the classic material. So it's definitely one of the damned if you do, damned if you don't scenarios, and kind of hard to end as a, you know, an evolving artist.
Yeah, so, I agree. And they really should do what they're happy with, although it pisses some people off, I suppose. Okay, my number 4, mate. I'm going to Visualize now. And the final track, Visions.
Yeah.
I mean, man, this is like a galloping, really dark sounding song as well, but obviously still got the melody there, especially that chorus with the turn on the visions, and then then he gives it that sort of soaring vocal over that. I love the way it sort of explodes into it, and you get this like these great guitar parts from Joe Holmes. When the guitar really comes in, the night is so black, and you get like them squealing guitar bits. It's brilliant. Visions is, again, I think, a bit of a deeper track, I would say, but that's the quality of this album. From track 1, I think it's 10 tracks. From track 1 to track 10, it might be 9. Just amazing stuff. I think it's 9 tracks. I think it was 4 on the second side. I'm not sure. But Visions, what a great song. What an end to the album. 9 or 10, mate.
I was looking here. I got the.
I'm sure it was 9. But
my CD is the reissue that's got some bonus tracks on it. But 9 official tracks, and then this has got some alternative versions and some live shit on it. So yeah, okay.
What's a great song?
The last track,
very epic, very epic.
Okay. So my number 3 goes all the way back to the beginning. Song's called "Rod of Iron," and it was on "Love You to Pieces" from 1985. But prior to that, it was the song that was put on Metal Massacre number 4, the compilations that they did back in the day. You know, that's where Metallica got their break, and Rat got their big break, and the 4th edition had Lizzy Borden, "Rod of Iron." Now they re-recorded it. That original version was very raw. I was reading some comments. Some people prefer the original ultra raw version. I like the version that appeared on Love You to Pieces better. It's definitely, even though the production on this album wasn't great, it was definitely better than the demo version that came out in '83 or whatever it was. But kind of an odd song in that it's almost got Christian lyrics, because it comes from the Book of Revelation, talking about the rod of iron, and the chorus in there, he says, King of Kings shall rule with a rod of iron. And it's talking about destroying evil, and not typically what you'd expect from Lizzy Borden. So like I said, it's almost a proto Christian metal kind of song, kind of like, I guess I would say Black Sabbath After Forever is probably the very first Christian metal song. And it's kind of in that vibe. I'm not saying Lizzy Borden was a Christian by any means, no more than Black Sabbath was, but it's kind of cool to hear him branch out a little bit and talk about something other than the dark evils.
Well,
anyway,
that was probably right at the beginning, wasn't it? That was right at the beginning. Maybe that was right at the beginning. Perhaps he was, might have gone that way. Along with Striper, maybe he's thinking about it. You never know.
I don't know. They were all on the Sunset Strip about the same time, so
they were.
Who knows? But just made for a cool subject matter, I guess. Because let's be honest, Metallica did some songs that were biblically based, and it's just, I've always said, people sometimes look at Christian metal and say it's not a heavy enough subject. I mean, there's some heavy stuff in the Bible.
Oh yeah.
Whether you're of that faith or not, there's some heavy stuff there that makes for cool lyrics and songs, whether you're a Christian or not. But anyway, that song just always grabbed me. It's just got a great vibe to it. Just like I said, I prefer the second version more so than the demo. But
yeah, I think people sometimes say they like the original just because it's the original.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? It's a weird one. It's like people with I don't know, the Queensryche EP. Yeah, it's great, but people say, oh, that's the best thing they've ever done. Oh, come on. I don't think it's the best thing they've ever done, but it's great. But come on.
But anyway. I should mention also the version on the live album of this song is I think it's even better than the studio. You were talking about how sometimes live albums sound better. I think the live version of Rod of Iron on the Murderous Metal Roadshow is actually more, grabs me more than the studio version, even because he's got that, that audience interplay, and he does a little bit of improvising during the middle of the song and whatnot. Cool. So it's just a really cool listen.
Thanks, mate. Thank you. Right, going to Visualize again. And I'm going for the title track, Visualize. Just again, there's some slower pace songs on this album, but this one again, heavy, some intricate guitar playing. I love the guitar playing all the way through this album. This is no exception. Massive sounding, almost. I suppose if you wanted to say a song is a ballad on this album, which I don't think it is, I suppose this could be quite close because of the pace of it. It's it is quite much of a slower song, but it's still got its heavy moments, of course. Not a ballad, but probably the closest you'll get. But again, love that part when it goes into the last set of choruses after the solo. I know you are my truth inside, and then he does. Yeah. Joe Holmes does this like wow, and it goes into it's just. I'm getting excited thinking about it now. Like brings hairs on the back end, but. A real classic song. Absolutely love Visualize. Brilliant song. Brilliant album.
Yeah, we hadn't really talked about Joe Holmes much, but he is such a underappreciated, underrated guitarist that thank goodness he finally resurfaced here lately. But he's been very, I don't know if the word's secretive or what through the years. I mean, he did Visualize, then he just disappeared, and later resurfaced, with Ozzy and briefly with David Lee Roth, and then he vanished again, and he had a couple little projects that never really got off the ground, and he's released some new stuff lately, but he was like the secret weapon on Visualize. Like I said, Lizzy always had had good guitarists. You know,
Mm.
most of them weren't name guys, but Joe and then Ira Black's probably the second best known. But Joe Holmes
Yeah,
was just he's a guitar hero that just should have been a much
agreed.
bigger name than he's been. Unfortunately, not many people, when you say Joe Holmes, they don't know who the hell you're talking about.
I think there's some albums that I grew up, we both grew up with, but there's some albums that I name as some of the best guitar work across the whole album. I'm thinking like Holy Diver was one of them,
Yeah,
and then I think this album would come into that. Every little bit of guitar work I know of by heart because, well, one, because the amount I listen to it, but
yeah.
everything, all the riffs, all the guitar solos are just mental, absolutely amazing.
Yeah, that's another thing. I originally had this album on cassette, and I literally wore my cassette out to the point where the little pressure pad fell out and it wouldn't play anymore. And a lot of the albums from back then, I played so much that I really don't even want to hear them now, even though I hadn't played them much in 30 years. This one sounds so fresh even now when you put it on. It is held up extremely well.
This was
Uh,
one. This was one of the albums, mate. If I did I did plenty of mixtapes. I don't know about you back in the day.
oh
If
yeah,
I did a mixtape, I didn't know what fucking song to put off it with Visual Eyes. And literally, which one do you'd have to
just
do
close
plenty of
your eyes and
mixtapes and
pick
have
one.
one. You have to have it on every one, wouldn't you? It's just amazing album. Yeah.
Yeah, there's not a skipper on the album at
No.
all. Which leads into my number two, Me Against the World.
Oh yeah.
Uh, this the funny thing about this, I vividly remember back then in the middle of the cassette, they had a little address where you could write to the fan club, and I wrote to the fan club, and I think they sent me a free sticker and a little letter, and there was a slip of paper in it that said we're coming out with a new video for Me Against the World, and this is back when they had Dial MTV, and it actually asked people to call MTV to request this song. Well, me being the dumbass teenager I was, I said, okay, I'll do it. So I called Dial MTV at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a weekday. And surprisingly, thinking back now, it's kind of funny, but a real person answered. And they're like, okay, what do you want to request? And I vividly remember I said, yeah, can you play Lizzy Borden, Me Against the World? And whoever was on the other end, they're like, who? And I repeated it. And this is back when they were, their constant rotation was probably like Janet Jackson and Bananarama and shit like that. And here I am requesting Lizzy Borden in the middle of an afternoon, and they're like, "Yeah, okay, we'll get right on that." I hung up. I sat in front of the TV for I know it was 3 hours straight, and of course they never played it.
No.
And eventually, I saw it on the Headbangers Ball, and it eventually did get kind of standard rotation for at least a few weeks on the Headbangers Ball. But that's the one thing that stands out to me. I tried to get them to play that in the middle of an afternoon, they wouldn't do it. But the whole album is just more obviously got more of a glammy,
Mm.
uh, influence than the two previous albums, but definitely more commercial. But like we've said, for the last 30 minutes or however long we've been talking, it's just so every song on it's a banger, and
What a start! It's an opening track. It's probably the most well-known track on the album as well.
yeah,
It was,
I would say so probably.
but
If,
what a
if they had a
start!
well-known song, this is probably it. Yeah, yeah,
The funny thing is, I got the album. I can't remember how long. I bought the vinyl, like as soon as I could. And the funny thing was, like the riff, the main riff, oh, that excellent riff. It isn't until I got the album on CD that I realised my record jumped. So to me, it was normal. Instead of what I just did, it went da 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 like that, and I just thought,
kind of a
when we
drop
got the
down.
CD, I was like, "Fuck, My album always skipped from day one. I was like, what the fuck?
You didn't even catch on to it, huh?
Didn't get, but I got used to it like that. And now, even if it comes on in the car as the proper version, I
That's
just
how you're
imagine,
expecting it.
yeah, it's fucking weird. But no, I love that song. Me Against the World. Man, I mean, that might be the song to start with, actually. Lizzy
Yeah,
Borden. Who
yeah,
hasn't heard Lizzy Borden? What's a great song? That's your number two, wasn't it, mate?
yeah. And like I said, the video, he had that alien persona or whatever, but got the silver face paint and the long fingernail. Just so I vividly remember my mom walking into the room when I was watching this on TV, and she was like, "What in the world is that?"
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Okay, well, my number two, mate. I'm going to Master of Disguise for this one. And it's the best for me, the best song on this album, and it's "Be One of Us."
Yeah, yeah,
Obviously, heavily inspired by the Lost Boys film because it even like quotes bits out of it. I think it mentions "Come taste the wine and fly away," which is the part where Michael hands the bottle of blood. Michael gets given the bottle of blood. Sorry. And there's loads of lyrics. It's obviously a vampire song. They must have loved that film because it literally. I actually thought this was in the film. I was like started to watch the film again when I was younger, thinking it's
yeah. It
got to
would
be
have
in
been
there
perfect for it. Yeah,
because it literally like quotes. It says "Lost Boys of Night" in it as well.
yeah,
Lost Boy. So yeah, it's definitely. But what a cool song! It's got that sort of that sort of slight maiden feel to it. Soaring vocals as usual from Lizzy Borden. My favourite track on the album, "Be One of Us." Superb.
yeah, yeah. That almost made my list. But yeah, I definitely agree. That could have been in that movie for sure. That would have been perfect
Mm.
for the soundtrack of that movie.
Oh yeah.
Okay, we're down to number one already. And my number one comes off of Love You to Pieces, and it is the best anthem he's ever done, American Metal. Uh, that song, they used to play that a lot on the
Mm.
college radio station, and it's just so anthemic. Maybe not to maybe not to you being in the UK, but when I think of American anthems, metal anthems, this is definitely toward the top of the list. It's just got a great riff that runs through it, and again, the live version on that live album, you can tell the crowd's just so into it, and I think he might end every show with this one, at
Yeah.
least when he's playing in the States, and it's just one of those that just gets the crowd so involved. And most of his songs, over the years have been about darker things. This is one of the exceptions. It's just about, it's a rallying cry for
Mm.
the metal community. It's not doesn't have any dark or evil vibes to it like a lot of his stuff. But yeah, I just love that one.
And I suppose like that was 80, 83, 84, 85. Sorry.
85.
So I
Yeah.
suppose that was like I always think 85. When I think about the best American metal was right bang in the middle of the 80s, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I think, that probably summed it all up, that song, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
Absolutely superb. Yeah. And like you said, one of the biggest songs
Yeah.
of the band.
Yeah.
Amazing stuff, mate. Amazing stuff. Okay, my number one is from Visualize. And it's Lord of the Flies.
Yeah.
Again, that riff, mate, that just once the song gets going, after that initial the little bit of guitar playing that intricate sort of like dampened string, and then it just shoots into the song, and this just album is full of riffs, isn't it, that are just mind blowing. They really are. It's almost like a minor key riff, quite dark the way the riff sounds. Just love the song. Just absolutely love it. And I suppose I don't know if it's a deeper cut. I'm not really sure. I think it might be, but nothing sounded deep on this album, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
Nothing sounded like a deep cut. An album, amazing album.
Yeah, every song on it could have been released as a single. I mean, it's just that good, and the hooks combined with the riffs. I mean, just what's not to like.
Agreed.
And it shocks me that some people some fans didn't really like this album because they thought he sold out. Uh, I guess I could see, if you were just so addicted to that early sludgy stuff that you just didn't want anything different. I guess, you like what you like, but this album just so damn good. I don't know how any metalhead couldn't like this album.
Well, I mean, look, mate, if we were to do a show, which we might have done already, from bands that have like massive steps up, if you like, from album to album, this would be it. This would be
Yeah,
one of those albums. From even though I loved Menace to Society, the step up is
yeah, it's
ridiculous
like
for
a
me.
giant step.
Yeah, songwriting, sound, and obviously I understand that people sometimes want that really rough sound, like you said there. But I suppose I've always been a production guy as well. Always liked something to sound good, you
Yeah.
know. So yeah, what a great band, what a great album, what a great band. It's nice to talk about Lizzy Borden. It's nice to actually have a show about him, actually. But
Yeah,
then, sorry,
we've mentioned him in passing, but
yeah.
yeah, I didn't know if any of the other idiots were that into him, but I know we both were. So yeah, I've been wanting to do this for a while, so I'm glad we finally got it. Did you have any honorables?
Yeah, I had American Metal and Red Rum
Yeah.
off of the first album. I had Bloody Mary off of Menace to Society.
Mhm.
I had Me Against the World. I don't know why I didn't choose it. I was thinking, again, when we do these lists, we try to be as true to our actual picks.
Yeah.
But then I like to talk about things that ain't what everyone else would talk about. And Me Against the World, I was hoping you would have it.
Yeah.
If I actually thought, I probably would. It's such a great song. I had that. I had Eyes of a Stranger, which used to be my favourite song, but it almost went down the list. It's almost a little bit too, I don't know, predictable, I'd say, with the chorus. Eyes of a Stranger. Almost like a little bit too happy for me, I suppose, compared to some of the darker songs. I think that was it, mate, really. The others obviously didn't have too many honourables because I just knew the ones I wanted to choose. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Well, I start off my list where I write down everything that could make the top 10,
Yeah. Yeah.
but then everything else is an honourable sort of thing.
Right.
Yeah. About you? Loads?
I had a counsel for the cauldron, which I said, like I said, I think that's the first song I remember hearing from them on that radio. Had a couple that you had, Notorious and Terror on the Town from Master of Disguise. Be One of Us, I had that one. Live Forever from Appointment with Death, and then the title track to My Midnight Things. Um,
I like
that
that song as
that
well.
one
That was
really
good.
grew on me. Like I said, when I
Yeah.
first bought this album and listened to it, I was like, this is just a little too, alternative sounding. But the title track, there's actually I watched a live video from, I think it was about a year ago, maybe, and that song is much more. He sounded really good doing that one live.
Mm.
It just kind of took on a whole new vibe hearing it live. So it made me like the studio version even more. And one thing I wanted to just mention in passing, I don't know if you've heard this or not. I mentioned it one time before, but he had uh, it's essentially a Lizzy Borden album under a different name. He called the band Starwood, and this came out in 2004. It's kind of got a 70s throwback kind of sound, kind of like a Hanoi Rocks kind of, glam rock, punk, kind of a glam rock, punk rock fusion, not the typical metal that was done under the Lizzy Borden name, but it's Lizzy and his brother again with and the bass player. So it's basically Lizzy Borden band with a different guitarist.
Mm.
But rather than call it Lizzy Borden, because it is a little bit different, some of these songs wouldn't sound right under the Lizzy Borden name, but still a cool listen if you hadn't heard it. It's definitely got a throwback 70s kind of vibe to it. I think Dom, I mentioned it one time before. I think Dom said he had it too and he liked it a lot. So.
I am intrigued to see what's next. If there's going to be, like you said, that last album's like 7 or 8 years ago now, isn't it? So
Yeah, now he did. I don't know if you saw it I think it was last year, 2024, I believe. He released one new song.
oh no,
I can't even remember off the top of my head what it was called, but
I didn't like it. I didn't
it
like
was
it. I know
absolutely
that.
horrible.
Yeah.
And yeah, I listened to it. I was like, no, I'm sorry, I don't like this one at all.
Yeah.
And if he does another album, I hope that's the weak song on the album.
Yeah, it's a bit fucking weird for my liking as well. I didn't like it
Yeah.
either, but you never know. Look, I'm sure sometimes if they come back with like bands come back with their last album or what could be their last album, they try and go back to their roots a little bit more.
Yeah.
Hopefully for our sake anyway, do what you like, but
Yeah.
for our sake.
Yeah.
No, very cool, mate. Thanks for joining me. Absolutely amazing. If there
Thank
are
you.
any Lizzy Borden fans out there who love Lizzy Borden, or listen to the songs we've mentioned, or put your list below. Top 3, top 5, top 10, whatever you want to do. But really worth a listen, guys. If you haven't heard Lizzy Borden,
We can't be the only ones out there that appreciate this band.
no, I don't think we are, mate. I don't think we are. Cheers, mate. Thank you very much. Give me the
Thank
horns.
you.
Cheers,
Yep.
mate.